This last sprint, we focused on allowing administrators to self-service style their repository. So one of the things that we found routinely happens in all of our projects is that we spend a non-trivial amount of time at the beginning of the project helping folks set up the look and feel of their site. So when I look at the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis research database, or Emory's theses and dissertations, and Yale University's library, special collections, digital collections, um, while it's true that all three of those sites use blue as their color, they're different blues and they're institutionally important blues in conveying those brands. Um, Yale, interestingly, does not use a logo anywhere on their page. Emory, uh, part of their branding and style guidelines is to have the university brand shield on every site, followed by a more localized name. The Federal Reserve has a slightly different way of sort of calling out their brand. So all of these small design and visual interactions are things that help a person know I'm at a bona fide site and I'm at the site owned by the institution I want to be at. So as we started the sprint, one of the things we realized is that even looking across these three and looking at the slightly different choices, we don't necessarily have a great handle on exactly what the minimum set of key changes are. It certainly looks like there's probably some color and background issues. There's probably some logo issues, but what pieces will we need to implement to give us the ability to at least get into the right ballpark of look and feel for a particular brand? So we'll need to do a larger design sprint on that. And as I talk about the next item, you'll see that right now we just focused on changing this this background header color, because that helps us work through some of the technical implementation details. Because the second thing that we found was that Rails, and therefore as an extension Blacklight, makes a pretty hard assumption that this kind of visual styling will be predefined in the code base prior to running or deploying the application, that it will be managed by a developer or a designer, but not that it will be modified dynamically by an administrator or application end user. So the real challenge of this sprint was actually just figuring out what the architecture was and what the mechanism we wanted to have that would let us make those changes. So again, largely what we'll be looking at this sprint is, can I change that background color on the banner dynamically as an administrator? And then as we go forward, we'll be looking at refining sort of that mechanism to have a smoother user experience. So out of the box, the application, because we tie all these things and all this look and feel, when the application starts, we get a sort of generic auto-generated theme. Right now, it's a black and white monochrome. It's not necessarily perfect. We've added our Tenejo logo, and even that doesn't show up well. So you can see why I might want to change it. So I could go in and edit this, but what I'm going to show instead is that I can actually create new themes. So I'm going to create maybe a minty green theme. That looks kind of like a mint. And I'm also going to create a warm gray theme. So gray with a little hint of red. So you'll see, again, I now have my choice of themes. Right now, I don't have a mechanism in the browser in the user interface to choose between these themes and activate them. So I'm going to quickly hop over to the console. And find my warm gray theme. And I'm going to activate that theme. So having done that, as soon as I hit refresh in the application, we'll see that we've switched over from black to a sort of dusty rose gray header and footer. So again, just showing that ability to create a theme with some settings. Right now, that setting is the header color, and switch between them. So we saw our default black and white theme. Here's my warm gray theme. I'm going to go through one more time and select my green theme, make that active, go back, and now I get kind of a minty green. And now that I see it, again, I'd ideally like to be previewing this in the application, but now that I see it, I see that my contrast maybe isn't good enough. So I'm going to go to my green theme, and I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to change that header color, and I'm going to make that green just a little darker, update that, and refresh my screen. And you can see how making that change, now I have an issue with my logo contrast, but I have a little better contrast in my text. So those are all the kinds of things that we know with these settings we need to address and deal with. That'll be work forthcoming in the next couple sprints. Right now, again, the main focus of this sprint had been making that dynamic mechanism so that we can choose between themes. Two of our next steps that we know we want to add in is the ability to preview a theme so that I can see what my color choices look like in live pages before unleashing those on all the users of my site, and the ability within the themes themselves to activate a particular theme once I previewed it. So now that I have this list of 3, I'd like to preview the warm gray theme before I set it active and maybe make some tweaks. And then once I previewed it and I have it set exactly the way I want, then I'd like to be able to activate it and make it the live theme for my site. So that's the work that we'll see coming up. So hopefully, again, this week's work on sort of just figuring out the mechanisms of dynamically changing these things are sort of the key underpinnings. And then again, the other piece of design work is to figure out, and probably actually having looked at it briefly, update the Blacklight layout and the Blacklight, basically their wireframes, to be something that's more encompassing of the average design that we see across a number of sites. So that's it for this week, and more to follow next sprint.